why investment banking may not be the career for you. Numbers, anything quantitative, those really make your head spin or make you yawn and want to fall asleep. Even though a lot of our job is spent in PowerPoint, just formatting and making things very client-friendly, we also spend a lot of time on valuation, financial modeling, and a bunch of numbers. And being able to pick out the nuances and recognize when things are a little bit off and just have a lot of detail-orientedness when it comes to numbers. Since a lot of our work is presenting valuation, ideas surrounding capital structure, etc., if quantitative things have never been your strength or if you just have zero interest in them, then this might not necessarily be the occupation for you. Maybe go with something that is more focused on the qualitative aspects, such as the strategy part, because we do spend quite a lot of time in Excel with a bunch of numbers, and I feel like it's much more motivating to go for something that you're naturally more inclined in terms of your strengths, as well as just are more interested in general. You need a full night of sleep in order to function. You tend to work 80 to 100 hours a week, and that means you'll probably have to put your sleep schedule on hold. And also it's just like fluctuates so much. Sometimes you stay up later than usual, sometimes you have to get up earlier than you normally do, so it's just really not a realistic possibility to always be getting that amount of sleep. If you're okay with going through periods of time without it, then you should be fine. But if you're someone who genuinely cannot function without it, you're a rebel. You hate authority, you don't like following the rules, and when people tell you what to do, you tend to immediately want to do the opposite. Now, I totally understand because I'm a little bit of that myself. For me personally, whenever I do something, I need a reason why. If some changes are happening and they seem unnecessary or very irrelevant, it will be very demotivating for me when it comes to incorporating those comments. I personally have found a way to get around this is just trying to understand the bigger picture of things. And now that I have a pretty good relationship with many members of my deal teams, I'm not afraid to ask, like, why are we incorporating this, or what is the rationale or reasoning behind this, or what is the purpose of this meeting, and then just framing it in a way where you're like genuinely curious about it and you're actually learning more about the project itself. I'm very much not someone who just like puts their head down and just does the work. I need someone to explain to me, we're putting this together because we're hoping for this to happen, or this is the rationale for why we're incorporating this. And the reason I say this is because investment banking is such a big hierarchy. It's very much emphasis on chain of command, where you're an analyst, you should go to your associate first to check it. After it's been checked by your associate and signed off, then you send it to your VP. After that's been signed off by your VP and your associate, then you can send it off to your director or managing director. So it's a lot of like back and forth, making sure that you're following that like pyramid in the hierarchy in order to technically do your job properly. For example, tech companies are usually a very flat organization. You can go to the person who's most senior and people are okay with it, but this is very much a structure where you kind of just take the comments and feedback that people ask you to include and you just kind of do it and process it. Obviously, this tends to change as you move up the ladder. When you're like associate VP, you start to have to think of the bigger picture and the flow of the story and the deck. But if you're someone who really hates just like following blindly what other people are saying, then this may not be your thing. If you're more of like an entrepreneur, you really like, being self-reliant and just having complete control over what you want to do personally and how you want to do things and have that autonomy, this is pretty much the complete opposite of that. You really care about your personal life. You really care about having a strong work-life balance. You want to be able to see your friends on a regular basis every single weekend, attend happy hours on the weekdays. No, not possible, okay? The number of plans I've had to cancel or postpone, and now sometimes the best formula is to not even make those plans at all and just being in the know about them so you can tell people last minute whether or not you can make it. Because of your long hours, you will have to sacrifice a lot of your own personal life. And this just means that, for the moment, you're putting work and your career at the top of your priority list and putting your social or your dating life second to that. Now, obviously, I am still able able to maintain really good friends, have a social circle, and just have fun in general. And that is a possibility. It's not mutually exclusive. However, it does make it more difficult to find the time. And because of the nature of the industry and the work itself, you won't always find yourself making it to every single event that you have. So just keep that in mind. Set your expectations low in terms of you probably won't be able to make it. And then sometimes you'll be pleasantly surprised with a free weekend, or at least a free day, at least, or a couple hours. Really like innovative cultures. You really like it when there's a lot of entrepreneurship and people come up with new ideas in order to improve the company. Yeah, so that doesn't really happen here. If you're looking for that, I would go for tech. I would go for somewhere that allows you to be more entrepreneurial on the job. Wall Street is still pretty traditional in many ways, even though it's gotten a lot better since a couple of decades ago, but there still tends to be a pretty traditional way of doing things. Hopefully that's starting to shift with new ways of implementing, say, technology. Not necessarily the place where they welcome a lot of your personal ideas to do things. Yes, you can do that on a smaller scale, but a lot of the things that are currently in place and have a system, you don't take constructive feedback well, and when you do get any feedback, you want it to be sugar-coated. Now, people in this industry are blunt, straightforward, very honest for the most part, and I personally prefer that because I'm someone who likes genuine feedback throughout the entire process rather than waiting for, like, say, mid-year or full-year reviews. So that suits my personality pretty well, but I also know of some people who really take it personally when people offer them feedback about their quality of work or how they are performing, etc. So I would just keep that in mind. When things are not necessarily up to people's expectations or up to par, they will be very, very straightforward about it. A lot of times I just take it with a grain of salt, but some people can be pretty emotionally affected by that. I just don't really take it personally. I think it's just part of the process and part of how you improve. I find it difficult to handle last minute deadlines or very, very tight deadlines. A lot of our projects are pretty last minute inbounds, or it's just a very expedited timeline in order to get it to the client. Someone else's emergency, your senior's emergency, will become your emergency. If you like longer deadlines, if you like something where you have months to plan and kind of brainstorm and have a lot of milestones in between, then this might not be the type that you're looking for. A lot of the projects and deals that we're on are extremely fast-paced. It's usually a sprint. I would say this is like sprinting a marathon. That's just the nature of the projects. You prefer to work independently, have your own projects, and just have a lot of autonomy. Well, all of these projects are very, very, very heavily dependent on teamwork, and you'll be frequently communicating with your associate, your VP, your director, your managing director, what have you, throughout the entire project processes. A lot of this work is not independent. You're always on a deal team and always communicating not just within your deal team and your group, but also amongst other groups because of cross-functional teams. So if that is something that you typically don't thrive in, then just think about that, because very rarely will you be on projects by yourself. I don't think ever, honestly. You aren't able to handle multiple projects at a time. You prefer to just focus on one, and once you finish that single project, then you move on to the next one. Unfortunately, this is not a possibility at all, basically, because typically you're working on a handful of different projects and random things will also pop up. In any single day of work, I've found for me personally, I'm working on at least 2 things, if not much more than that. And it's just about how you prioritize and balance it. For example, I'm on call for this other thing. I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to squeeze in time to work on something else that needs to be sent out that afternoon for a meeting. It's just figuring out how you're going to balance all of that. So if you're someone who just likes one project at a time, then just realize that this will not be the case in banking, and just coming to terms with that. You get stressed out very easily. This is a very high pressure, high stress job that requires long hours, and a lot of what you learn is stress management. But if you already know you're someone who doesn't handle stress very well, this may or may not be the job for you.